Welcome to this information session this evening. We have a wonderful Kundalini Yoga teacher training program coming up in January next year. We have one underway right now. It started in January and will finish in early December. And so we're going to repeat something similar next year as well. We've done this now a number of years and it's been quite successful. So we're excited now that we've been back in person for a couple of years to keep it going, so to speak. And welcome Shiva and so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you an overhead presentation. As I say, I'll stop from time to time, and if you have questions, you can certainly let me know. If you want to pause and ask questions about something or just get clarification around something. So my intent here is to give you a little bit of background on me and a little bit of background on this training program. None of you are completely new to Kundalini Yoga, right? If you were, just stick your hand up, but it looks like yes, a little bit. Okay. So this will also serve then as an introduction to the practice, although I'll just touch on that. So for most people, it'll be a little bit more familiar. But again, we can certainly talk a little bit in more detail, either within the context of this session tonight or offline. I'm happy to have a one-on-one with anybody as well. Okay, great. So let me just pull up this and all right. So here we are. It's August 6th. And a little bit, again, on me, 24 years in advertising and marketing. And in 2002, I switched over to wellness full-time and involved firstly with yoga. But through this business I started in 2004 called The Wellness Path, I offer classes and trainings and also workshops and events as well. So events, very excited to be able to produce over the years, starting in 2006 with Sanatam Kaur, many sacred chant concerts. I've dialed that back a little bit, certainly since the pandemic, and I've focused a little bit more on a few artists. I'm helping support Sanatam's program here in September of this year. I think it's sold out. It's in Toronto. I have a program coming up next May to be confirmed very, very soon for Deva Premal in Midtown as well. That'll be awesome at the, where is it? At the Queen Elizabeth Theatre on the exhibition grounds. So it's been there, hosted it there a number of times, and it'll be fabulous again, I'm sure. So a little bit more on me again. I'm been a teacher since 1999 and a trainer since 2006. I'm also involved with a program called Beyond Addiction that my mentor, Sanatam Kaur, created back in 2008. So I'm a teacher and a trainer in that program. And a lot of the classes that I teach at this moment in time online since the pandemic tend to be focused around that theme of changing habits. And so that continues as well. I'm also a compassion inquiry practitioner. So if you're familiar with Gabor Mate, his work, he is very much a part of the Beyond Addiction program. And that's how we got to know him way back in the mid 2000s. And he has a program called Compassionate Inquiry, which was created in 2019. And I'm a practitioner of that. It's Siddhartham, and he co-created that in 2019 when it was launched. And so building on that work, I'm a coach, and I do that work through my business called Humble Lion Coaching. I'm married to Beer Kaur since 2016. That's she and I together there. I have 2 adult kids. They live in Toronto presently. I live in Brantford with Beer and my dog. You can see there up in the top left corner there, Lottie. And she just was in the room and just left. All right, so let's talk a little bit about tonight. So I will talk a little bit about what is Kundalini Yoga, touch on some teacher training topics, I'd like to go through what our course requirements are, if I may, because I think it's important for you if you're considering this seriously to understand what you're getting into and why take then our particular program. And there'll be time, as I said, at the end if you wish for Q&A. All right, so what brings you here? And this can be, we say, through a number of different reasons, perhaps out of necessity. And this is something where, you might be at this moment in your life looking for some deeper understanding of you. What is it that makes you tick? Why are you here? Like what's your life purpose, perhaps? You might, have some particular challenges or issues that you're facing at this time, and so all of these are things that might inform why you might show up now, including even the possibility that, you've heard of somebody else talk about this practice and you're curious to know a little bit more about it and have that experience. But for me, I found that it can be very much a combination of these things. In fact, the last one, which I call calling, this is where, as I alluded to a little bit a moment ago as well, this just idea that there might be more to what's showing up for you that you'd like to explore a little bit more deeply, what you're meant to be doing. And so, very much this program, I think, can help address that within oneself. So what is Kundalini yoga? Well, let's take it back another step and say, well, what's yoga? And yoga comes from a Sanskrit word, means to yug, which means to join together or to unite. And what is it that we're uniting? Well, we're uniting our finite and our infinite consciousness. And that's what all yoga, purports to do, is to bring you more in touch with this infinite part of you, your truth. Now, more specifically around Kundalini yoga, if you've been around the practice a while, sometimes it's referred to as yoga of awareness. Again, that is a very broad term, awareness. So what does that mean? Well, to me, that means this is that awareness of both these two aspects of oneself, your finite part and your infinite part, and understanding both of these things as deeply as you can. Very often we get caught up in our humanness, and this limits us, very much limits us. And so I think this is very much a process of how we understand ourselves as spiritual beings having a human experience more so than the other way around. And I think this is a practice, is one that helps brings us more in touch, with this potential within ourselves to really express ourselves very fully and deeply. In any kind of teaching, you will get exposed to information. And I think it's very true, though, that intellectual knowledge isn't enough. And I love this maxim, knowledge becomes wisdom when it's your personal experience. So yeah, this is very much about having an experience of yourself on this level, not just, book knowledge, but having a real experience. And so what's true is that, yes, teachers, whether it's yoga teachers or teachers, in any kind of school, can give you knowledge and can give you techniques, but true wisdom really comes through your felt sense of this, through your experience of this. And what's true too is to have an experience that requires a commitment and some discipline on your part. And very much, I think that's what you're called on when it comes to something like a Kundalini yoga teacher training program. So a little bit more about this. As we think about just our true nature unfolding, this is about growth. This is about what is it that I'm meant to learn at this time on the planet. This is, you can think of life as a series of lessons, that you're meant to grow through. And I do believe that is what we're engaging with when we engage with this particular yoga practice. But of course, we encounter blocks. We always encounter blocks to our growth, and that can come through a whole variety of reasons, some that are known and some that are unknown to us. But very much this is about being attached, I think, to the known, to the past, and perhaps a little bit to our addresses our fear of the unknown, what's in front of us. And so I know, for instance, for myself, I have very much that sense of not wanting to take chances, and so for me, it's been a journey of trying to push those boundaries within myself to expose myself to something that's, beyond my grasp, perhaps in the moment. And so what are we doing then through practices like this? Well, we learn and we grow by examining ourselves, by examining our attitudes, our behaviors, and our habits, and through that examination, then we do gain new perspectives and new capacities within ourselves and new promoting habits that can support us as we expand and grow. All right, so that's a little bit about that. And let's talk about, again, for those that where Kundalini yoga might be a little bit newer, a typical class that you might get exposed to is 90 minutes. They might be sometimes 75 minutes, but more often than not, when there's time, they're 90 minutes. And a Kundalini yoga class might consist of these components. Again, this will be familiar to many of you. A breath practice or a warm-up to begin with. What we call a Kriya practice, which is essentially yoga postures with movement, or asana with movement. So a series of yoga postures put together that are meant to bring about a very specific outcome. And there were thousands of these that were taught over many, many years by the teacher, the master of this practice. And so this is what, again, we in turn share with our students. So we have a warm-up or perhaps a pranayama to begin with, a Kriya that could take 30 to 40 minutes, perhaps, maybe even longer, and then followed by a deep relaxation, where you get a sense or a time to really consolidate all the work that you create for yourself through the practice. And then typically we finish with a meditation. It might be 11 minutes, it might be a little bit longer or shorter, as the case may be. And a meditation, in this case, might be one that's silent. It might be one that includes mantra. It might be one that includes mantra that's silently voiced, or it might be one that's voiced out loud. So again, there's quite a variety that might come into the meditation component of any given class. What I love about this, and what many others have expressed about this too, is that this is a practice, Kundalini yoga, that you might notice some pretty powerful shifts even with your first class. And that's not unusual. That's not unusual. And so I think that's why some people get quite intrigued about wanting to know more about this and perhaps wanting to share it with others. All right, so I'm going to pause for a moment. And if anyone has a question or a comment at this point, you can raise your hand and ask. And I'm going to take a sip of water, and otherwise I'll just keep going. Keep going? Oh, okay. Hang on one sec. Yeah, Shiva, go ahead.
It's more common, but also just to give you a break and know that your words are being received. Yes, I had the craziest, most powerful experiences with just one session that is baffling to me. Like, you're talking about different kriyas. So I remember there was one kriya about basically getting any kind of toxins or bacteria or virus out.
Uh-huh.
Just did the thing, and next day I was sick. I was just it's just
Yay.
fantastic. It's magic,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it might feel hard. And that's the thing about I love also about the practice. It might make you really uncomfortable, but maybe that's exactly what you need in the moment, to help, move through something that's important to move through, So again, I think that that's not unusual, and it's sometimes why we might actually focus on a very particular exercise or practice, to bring a very specific effect about, so again, it might be to work on a particular organ or a gland or system in the body, or it might be simply to, to strengthen my immune system, or to move, as you expressed, in your example, to move something through my system maybe a little more quickly than otherwise it might. So yeah, thanks for sharing. All right, I'm gonna share a couple of little pieces of the teacher training program here. I mean, it'll be really, really top line. It's just going to be a couple of minutes on each, but it's just meant to give you a little bit of a taste of some of the things that we will be covering, some of the subject matter. And the first, which I think is, again, unique to our practice, it might be expressed in others as well, but there's some practices that don't really explore sound and mantra in a big way, and we do. And so I think, it's worthwhile to talk about it for a moment here. As I said, I think this is a distinguishing feature of our practice, and every class involves a little bit at the beginning and the end. It involves chanting. And when we tune in with the Adi mantra, Om Namo Gurudev Namo, 3 times, and we tune out with a beautiful blessing, the long-time sun blessing. And then sometimes between the beginning and the end of that, we'll chant in our meditations, and sometimes even in our kriyas, we call for chants. And sometimes there are meditations that are built into the kriyas, and there's chanting there in that form too. But sometimes, we'll be chanting while we're doing exercises as well, depending on the kriya. Sometimes, again, if you're familiar with this, having attended some classes, you might be guided by your teacher to bring mantra onto your breath, to inhale Sat and exhale Nam, for instance, so that we're constantly invoking mantra, and Sat means truth and Nam means identity or name. So it's like bringing this awareness on every breath then to your essence, your true essence, your Sat Nam, your identity. And so I think that's a beautiful component that often people will bring into a class practice or a personal practice. Right. A little bit more than on sound. What is sound? Well, the entire universe is built on sound. Any sound we utter causes a vibration, and importantly, not just sounds that we give voice to, but even words that we think have a vibration attached to them. So this can be very powerful as well. And that's why, in fact, we chant mantras sometimes very silently on purpose. And we believe, right, that they have an effect. And that is because everything is vibration in this universe. And we can connect with that very particular vibration this way. And that vibration is what? The nod, we call, the sound current, the nod. All right, a little bit more on that. So this is a little bit on how chanting works. On the upper palate of the mouth, we have these meridian points, 84 of these in total, and there's 64 of them on the hard palate, so this is just behind the front teeth. And then further back on the top roof of the mouth, on the soft palate, there's 20 more meridian points. And so you can notice, and we'll have a little experiment with this, when you move the tongue then, as you vocalize something, you can feel how the tongue is connecting with the upper palate of the mouth. And so what we understand is that there is, through using sacred languages like Gurbani, that we do, which is a combination of Sanskrit and Gurmukhi, by having these connections, as it were, with these meridian points on the roof of the mouth, we're actually creating very particular vibration. And so you can think of it as these meridian points on the roof of the mouth like a computer keyboard. And what are they connecting to? Well, they're connecting to the brain, to the hypothalamus of the brain, in a particular way that it then transmits signals to the pituitary gland, which is the master gland. And as you might know, the master gland of the body then has an impact on the entire glandular system. So in theory, what we're saying is, as you sound out these sacred sound syllables, you're creating the possibility of this whole chemical action and transformation throughout your system. So that's a little bit about how that works. But importantly, it doesn't have to be vocalized out loud. It still works on an energetic level as well with these same meridian points. All right, so let's have a little experiment with what the heck it is I'm talking about. So I'd like you to just notice for yourself. You can stay muted and just chant out loud, la, 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 la. Keep going. And notice where in your mouth, on the upper palate of the mouth, notice where your tongue is connecting. La, 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 la. Okay? Now, we're going to try a different sound syllable. And for those, again, familiar with the audio mantra, the way we tune in with each class, Om Namo Gurudev Namo, it's that Om sound. So let's chant that now together out loud. Om, 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 Om. And notice where your tongue is here, quite different from the la, la, la. Om, Om, Om. All right? All right, so that again, just to give you, kind of a real experience of these slight differences that are actually can be quite profound, and is the way that not just in our practice, but in other sacred languages, these sound syllables have this very powerful connection to the sound current. All right, so that's a little bit on sound. Another, I think, powerful component to our practice is breath, otherwise known as pranayama. Again, it's not in all practices, it is in some other ones, but we do focus quite a bit on an understanding of breath, and we'll go over it for a few minutes here now. And in our training program, we do look at breath from both a yogic as well as a Western standpoint. So this is about understanding pranayama and also about understanding the respiratory system. So we understand and appreciate that breath works on many different levels, both a subtle and a gross level, in a conscious way and in an automatic way, in an unconscious way. So we do know that oxygen, we know about breath as it relates to oxygen, and includes that, nitrogen, and other elements. And then, we can look at, the subtlety of prana or pranayama, as we recognize as life force energy. And this life force energizes the mind and the body as well as consciousness. It's not just about energizing our physical body in this case. So with that in mind, and if you believe that this is what we're bringing in on our breath, are you aware of how you breathe? Because importantly, most people don't breathe well. They don't breathe correctly. And typically, it can be more shallow, more erratic, and more upper chest. And it makes sense, why that might be the case, because, of the state of the world that we live in right now. We live busy lives, sometimes in very busy environments, sometimes with lots of challenges. And so we adapt as we need to adapt. But that doesn't mean that, our breath then, which is following that adaptation, is then returning to a quote unquote normal. And it's not typically normal, because that might not be our normal state, but let's call it an optimal state of breathing. Very often we get very stuck in our breath patterns, and we may not even be aware of it. Well, in this training course, you were made very aware of that, and also what we can do about that. And so I've just alluded to this. So, you can think of a time in your life when you're stressed, and it might be now, but it might be at another moment, where you can think about that for a moment and how that shows up in your body. So again, I'll pause for a moment and just allow you to process this right now, and think of a time, when you are stressed. And as you recall that, notice how it shows up in your body, and it might show up very much in terms of physical sensations. And very often, though, it will show up in your breathing pattern. Like for me, I know for many, many years, because I didn't even come to yoga till quite a lot later in life. Well, I was a very, and tend to be still, a shallow breather. Not short breaths necessarily, but very shallow. And I think what's important then is as we become more tuned into our own breathing and breath patterns and understand this practice more deeply as teachers, we recognize, wow, this is the person that's coming into class. Very typically, they might be coming from an environment where they are stressed out, and so we need to be cognizant of that and recognize there are then needs that are in front of us that need to be addressed. And we can do this through a variety of ways in our yoga class. Beautifully, we understand that, there are breath techniques that help let go of muscle tension, that help increase vitality within ourselves and help increase that connection, not just to our physical being, but also to our essence, to our spirit as well. And I love this maxim: the mind follows the breath and the body follows the mind. So what does that mean? It means that, I might be super agitated, as an example, but I recognize that if the mind follows the breath, that if I implement a breath practice in that moment, that I can affect the way the mind is behaving. And that's a really powerful thing, to know that I can employ tools in any given moment if I'm aware in the moment that maybe I have that need, because I do believe that the mind does follow the breath. And so I can, if it requires just kind of slowing my mind down, I can do that through the breath. Importantly as well, the body follows the mind. So, whatever it is that's showing up in my physical body, I know that that's impacted by the breath or by the mind powerfully, what's showing up in my body. And I know I can control both of those things through my breath. All right, so a little bit more on breath. And what is a quote unquote normal breath pattern? Well, there are studies that have existed, for years out there, even broken down by gender, where we recognize that a typical breathing pattern, not one that's under stress, might be around 16 to 18 cycles a minute for male gender and a little bit quicker even for the female gender. So what does that mean? Well, if it was 50, let's keep the math simple. So 60 seconds. If it was 15 seconds, just say for sake of argument on average, that's 2 seconds in and 2 seconds out. And that's a fairly quick breath, and that's a normal average breath. So what do we do? And what do we understand? Well, we understand that if we can slow that breath down by half, again, so 4 seconds in and 4 seconds out, which is about 8 cycles per minute, we know at that point in time, so that's again, not an uncommon breath that you might have brought into a yoga practice. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, a total of eight, a cycle of 8 seconds. 8 eighths are 64, and that's how I get approximately 8 cycles in a minute. Well, we know that if we can slow the breath down to that rate, that our parasympathetic nervous system kicks into gear. And the parasympathetic, unlike the sympathetic, that's part of the autonomic nervous system that's all about rest, digest, and recover. So, it's a very critically important component of our nervous system that we can't just make happen, but we can cause it to kick into gear, through a breath practice. And is a very important one to be able to bring into our repertoire, particularly when we're in a stress pattern through work or other life circumstances, pardon me, where we're constantly on, which is like the sympathetic nervous system, foot on the gas pedal, is constantly on, and we're finding it very, very difficult to get relaxed. Well, through breath, we can do that. And let's talk a little bit about our KRI certified training program. So what do you get with this program? You receive a thorough grounding of all the basics of our practice, of the Kundalini Yoga practice. And so the program, the training itself, is a blend of lecture, reading, yoga and meditation that gives you a powerful, deep experience. So remember, I said much earlier on that the experience of this is very important, this practice. You receive personal guidance and feedback in key teaching skills. And importantly, you'll get lots and lots of practice so that you're fully prepared to teach a class following the training. There's going to be lots throughout the session, lots of opportunities to do a little bit of practice teaching. You'll be introduced to a community of people committed to self-improvement, to healing and professional development, which I think is important, to be in a community of like-minded souls that are looking to do this kind of personal work. Our program is internationally recognized through the Kundalini Research Institute. It meets the requirements of the Yoga Alliance 200-hour membership, if that's something that's desired. And it includes automatic membership for the first year in our association, the International Kundalini Yoga Teachers Association. So the cost of your first year membership is included in your course fee. Okay, now let's spend a few minutes talking about the certification requirements. Well, first and foremost, you have to be there in the class for the 180 hours classroom hours. So there's 180 hours of class time, and there's another 40 hours of roughly of home study time, so that's 220 total hours. Anyway, so the 180 hours of classroom time you're meant to be there for, and know that you have the opportunity through our program of attending it either in person or online. So it's a hybrid program in that respect. We've done it that way for the last 2 years, and I think it works extremely well. You're required to attend 20 Kundalini Yoga classes at the start of the program, after the start of the program, so either during the program or following the program if you haven't got them all in by then. But within 11 months, it shouldn't be a problem. You're meant to do this, though, with a KRI certified teacher. The other thing is that you're required to attend 5 early morning sadhanas. And so we have, unique to our practice, an early morning practice that runs for 2.5 hours from 4 to 6:30 a.m. Really powerful practice. It involves a combination of prayer, Kundalini yoga, and lots of meditations that total, as I say, about 2.5 hours. So those are available to you. They're available in Toronto on an everyday basis at the space actually where we're going to be hosting this teacher training program, the Guru Ramdas Ashram downtown. It's also available online as well through a couple of avenues, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Well, while I'm on this subject, the 20 classes, there's a requirement to do most of them, if not all of them, in person. Same thing with the sadhanas. Now, we allow some flexibility around that and recognize might even be some interest in attending and even teaching online ultimately. And so 15 of the 20 classes have to be in person. 5 of them can be online. And with the sadhanas, out of the 5, 3 of them need to be in person, and 2 of them can be online. All right, so that's our requirement around that. There's also a meditation day intensive that's required for the students, participants. This is a White Tantric Yoga course, which runs in May in Toronto each year and other locations as well. And we also have an alternative to that program, an all-day meditation intensive, which I will host in Toronto as well as an alternative to that program. Up until this past year, in fact, White Tantric Yoga wasn't even available, during the pandemic and after the pandemic. And so we had this alternative that was created anyway, for people to be able to certify in the absence of White Tantric Yoga. So anyway, that is available. There's a requirement to perform a student practicum. So this is your opportunity to actually teach a practicum class. It'll be either 75 minutes or 90 minutes, pardon me, in length. But even prior to being required to teach a complete class in front of some of your classmates, you'll have had lots of practice teaching before that, as I mentioned earlier. I'll keep going with the requirements here. There's a 40-day meditation practice that you're required to do. And it's 40 consecutive days. It'll be 31 minutes. And you're essentially given the whole session to complete that. So lots of opportunities to start it. It's not always the easiest thing to do 40 consecutive days of something. Sometimes the mind, again, plays games with us and interferes with that. What do? Well, there are no gimmies in that. 40 days, you start again. And so sometimes people have to start over again. And that's just the way it is, because we train ourselves to allow the mind not to be in charge, rather to be subservient to our spirit. That's who we want in charge. And if we decide we're going to do a 40-day practice, then it's no matter what, and when something happens, it's like, okay, fine, we're going to start again, right? We don't give in to that. So we just simply start again. We forgive, ourselves appropriately, and we carry on and we do it again. And we can build on that. So in level 1, we start with a 40-day requirement. And why 40 days, you might ask? Well, we say it takes 40 days to break a habit or to change a habit. And so you can see how that can be a very, very important and powerful component to a practice, to know that I need to dedicate myself around something in order to bring about some kind of change. And we can do that through our yoga practice. And I think that's a great discipline anyway to teach ourselves, because as we get in the practice of being in charge of our minds, it unfolds like that then through all aspects of our lives. So I love how, this is very much about, yoga off the mat. This is about, how we learn the lessons we need to learn to live our lives as these spiritual beings having this human experience. And that doesn't have to have anything to do with you actually teaching a formal yoga class, right? This is about you and how you navigate your way through the world. Anyway, so we get experience with the 40-day. When you go up to the other levels, like level 2 teacher training, the experience is a 90-day consecutive day practice. And when you go to level 3, it's 1,000 days practice. And so again, those different touchstones have different impacts, as it were, on us and on our minds. All right, so I'll keep going here. You need to also create 2 programs that you will create for yourself, on paper, so that you are ready to teach when you finish this teacher training program. So one is an 8-week class series, 75-minute or a 90-minute class series of 8 classes, where you'll follow a particular theme. And it might be, if you're familiar with chakras, in our practice, we say there are 8 of them. Other traditions say 7. Well, we have 8, including the aura. That's the 8th. So that could be an example of an 8-week class series. Week 1 is chakra 1. You talk a little bit about that. You teach a kriya for the first chakra. You teach a meditation for the first chakra, voila. And then you move on through the series that way, as just one example. The other thing you're required to come up with, in addition to the 8-week class series, is a workshop of your own choosing. Half-day workshop, can be longer if you prefer, but a half day, like minimum 3 hours, or it can be anything where you bring some Kundalini yoga, the equivalent of like a class, so equivalent of like 90 minutes of yoga would come into your workshop, into your half day, but it can be around any topic that makes sense, right? That you would bring yoga into, of your choosing. So again, this is something that you would create. And if you need assistance with that, we're happy to provide you with a very specific class series and workshop, in the absence of you being able to come up with something of your own. Not a problem. Mostly this is about you just having an experience of learning to put this together so that you can leave the training program ready to go. Like I know not only do I have something, but I know how to do this as well. So you have that experience. We have an exam as well at the end of the program that you're required to get 75% on. Not hard to do because all of the, and I'll get to the next point, speaks to this, take a take-home monthly quiz. So after every course class weekend, you'll be quizzed on the following weekend about the material that you covered in the previous month. So you have what you receive in the class weekend, and then you'll have a month to integrate that, to practice with it, to study with it a bit, and then you have a quiz. And actually the quiz is done online at home by you. And it's time sensitive. You have 20 minutes to do it, and you fill that out. And what I'll say is, what's great about this quiz is that as you do this month by month, as we go through the program, it's what prepares you for the final exam, because the final exam is essentially taking information from those quizzes and giving it to you as a final exam. So it's not hard to pass. I'll just say that right now. And I think is that the last? Yes, that's the last. And the last piece on here is we have a code of ethics, and we'll go through that, and want everyone to feel comfortable with that. But it's very, very important, I think, to have integrity as teachers, to understand what it means to be a teacher, and as we embody that, to model that as well to students, that we are teaching. And so I think understanding that, what that entails, and a lot of that, as we go through it, will make common sense to you, I think, won't be a surprise to you. But that is something that is important and is a requirement, to be a teacher of this practice. All right, so those are the course requirements. I'll keep going here and talk a little bit about the cost. Again, if any of you have been on my website, this likely is not news to you. We have an early bird reduced price of roughly $3,600, $3,599, that goes up to roughly $3,900 after December 5th. If you are a full-time student or a senior 65 or older, there's a 10% discount on that pricing. And for what it's worth, I'll mention that for people that identify as Black, Indigenous, or a person of color and have a financial need, I do have, pardon me, two slots available, two subsidies available for people of $900 off those prices that I've just mentioned. So that's available. And how do you qualify that? Well, you simply identify as that, and you have a need, and that's about it. And then it's simply on a first come, first served basis. So it's more than just a request that might be of interest. It's like you actually have to pay with at minimum the down payment if you're going with a payment plan, or paying in full to take advantage, of these various reduced rates, etc. So that's how that will work with the subsidy. As I mentioned in the next bullet, there are customized payment plans available. I'll mention that I'm also offering for people, that are on this call and choose to want to take the best, like know that they want to do this and want to take the absolute, best advantage of the price. I knock an extra $100 off for those that are committing to the program on the 16th of August or sooner. Or I'll even extend that to starting payments by the 16th of August and completing those payments by December the 1st. So to give a little bit of time to pay, I'll still take that $100 off of that program. So it's essentially $3,500, plus tax. So that's available. For people that aren't ready that soon to commit, but and are looking for a payment plan, I'll mention that typically if you pay the down payment by the December 5th date and want to spread your payments over the new year, that I do that for the regular rate. So it would be, let me just see, I'm just looking at some notes here. Oh, I've even got another one. If you start to pay by September the 1st, but want to continue to and want to finish paying by March the 1st, I'll do the 3,600 in 3 installments. But more typically, those that are looking, to get the down payment in by the 5th and then spread their payments out further into 2025, like December 1st and then March 1st and June 1st, then it would be what's essentially the regular rate, which is $3,900 split up into those payments. So anyway, I know that's a lot of financial information, and I'll go over that at the end if anybody is interested and wants to review that some more. What does this cost include? It includes the teacher training manual and textbook. So they're 2 different textbooks, and I'll grab one. Grab one set, I should say. So that's our textbook. And this is our yoga manual. So that the manual includes like all these incredible pranayam, kriyas, and meditations all in one book. And then the textbook is the curriculum that gives you, all the information around yogic philosophy, sound and mantra, et cetera, et cetera. So those are what are included in your price. What is not included in your price are the classes that you need to take and the meditation intensive, that either the White Tantric Yoga program or the other meditation intensive. So that's a separate cost in each of those cases. And I'll mention, by the way, the sadhana, the early morning practice, is always free. It's not just for us or in the program or outside the program. Early morning sadhana, that 4 a.m. practice is always at no charge. So not to worry about that. All right, a little bit, again, on a visual here on some of your core teachers. So there's me, Eva, I've mentioned, who's represented by that screen, the garden there, off video. And Ekon Karkar is a wonderful teacher. She doesn't come in. She comes in typically for 1 weekend, but it's a great weekend where she covers the history of yoga as well as the history of our practice. Lovely individual, very, very steeped in the history of our practice. And so we always look forward to her coming in when she can. We also have, I'll mention, other guest teachers and trainers that come into the program throughout the year. I have wonderful Kirtani Madhamander Singh that came in last April. I think it was in April. from zoomed in from Italy for our program. He's been around our practice forever. I also bring in other, specialists, like someone comes in and does diversity, equity, inclusion in the fall. It's going to come up in our September weekend. We'll probably, again, have her available to us next fall, and so on. So anyway, lots of wonderful teachers and trainers brought in. 220 hours, as I mentioned a little while ago, 180 in the class, 40 self-study. Our programs hosted out of the ashram downtown Toronto, Bathurst and College area. It's 11 weekends over 11 months, Saturday, Sunday only, which is great. So it means, you don't have to struggle to get somewhere for a Friday night, which, oh my God, I did that gig, for many, many, many years. And it's not easy as a teacher or as a participant, to pull that together. So we have an extra weekend. So instead of 10, it's 11 weekends, but we don't have to do the Friday night. Start in January, through July. There's no teacher training in August, although we do the practical intensive day in August. And we finish in the fall, September through December with our last weekends. And there's a snapshot, again, available on my website, TheWellnessPath.ca, the weekends for next year. I don't know that I need to really speak to this much, but it's such an incredible practice, as the other practices also provide. We work on the nervous system in almost every single class. It's a program, a practice rather, that helps balance our glands. We know that through things like the breath and through the yoga, that we can switch our moods and our state of mind and our vitality levels, just like that. And so, again, really powerful benefits for ourselves personally, as well as what we might want to share with other people. It's an excellent way, an excellent way to master something is to teach it. That's something that, we say in our practice. If you really want to master something, you don't just study it, but you actually share it with others. This is difficult times in this age. And, more folks are just required to be out there doing what they do. It's not just teaching yoga classes. It's just kind of being in the world, modeling what you model, though, but in a very, uplifting and enlightened way, and how do we get there? It's by understanding ourselves really more deeply, so this is a practice that does give you the stamina and the courage and the insight, I think, to really bring out your highest potential and to lead and support others at this time. That's a little bit on me. I have, some classes I alluded to that I teach online. I'm taking the month of August off from them. So they're not actually available online in August, Thursday evenings. There are other, again, classes you can find through Lotus Yoga Center, both that stream online as well as in person at the space I've been referring to. Again, we can talk about that separately if there's need or interest in that. And that's me. TheWellnessPath.ca is my website. You can catch me at that contact email and phone number. I'd like Eva to unmute if she would for a moment and just say hello.
Shalom, everybody. I'm at work. I'm a personal trainer here at Equinox, so I've been listening in. Yes, hello. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm very happy and excited for 2025 to be unfolding. I've been with Nirmal on his team for a couple of years now, but I've been in teacher trainings helping out for, I think, 5 or 6 trainings with Satdaram, his mentor, before that. And I've been teaching Kundalini yoga since 2013. And I've been a yogi since I was 16. I'm almost 40 now. So it's been a while that I've been on this path. I live at the Guru Ramdas Ashram in Toronto. And yeah, it's a great privilege for me to be on this team. And every year the best part for me is seeing how much all of you grow, seeing the transformation that you go through, and it's like a great privilege for me to be a support for you and to help guide you through that journey. And so I just feel like you're all these little buds, and you just flower at the end, and it's just so lovely to see. So yeah, so that's about it. And anything else involved that I'm supposed to? No, I guess not.
No, that's
That's
good.